Hey guys, guess what I'm making? Tortillas! Yeah, I already made one video and it was like 30 minutes long. So, now that I've already made the dough and I'm cooking the tortillas, I'm just going to give you guys the recipe and tell you how I mixed up the dough. It's 3 cups of flour, 1/3 cup of oil or lard, either or, not both, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, and then what you want to do is you want to mix up all that dry ingredients in with the lard. And I used a pastry blender just to cut the lard into the flour and the dry ingredients. And then once that was kind of broken up, then I dove in with my hands and mixed up the dough until it had kind of like an apple crisp, crumbly consistency. Then after that, you want to throw in 1 cup of warm water and mix that in with the dough. Add the water gradually because you don't want to add too much and end up with like pancake batter, which isn't going to happen, but unless you're using 2 cups of water instead of 1. But after you've added the water, you want to knead the dough for 5 minutes. Then some people say let it rest, other people, they're like, just start making tortillas. So I let my dough rest for a couple minutes, long enough to heat up my iron skillet, which is working wondrously. So, heat up the iron skillet. I did not put any oil or butter in the skillet because the tortillas already have lard in them, so they are not going to, trying to get that background light. It's blinding. You're like, I'm melting. Totally kidding. The tortillas already have lard in them, so you shouldn't need to put anything else in the skillet to make them not stick. Just don't have your fire up too high. I started mine off on low just to gradually warm up the pan. And then it took a really long time to brown the very first tortilla, to brown the first tortilla. And I had put it on medium and it still took a long time, so I kicked it up to high just to bring the temperature back up. And because I have a glass top stove, so it's not consistent on the heat because it's conduction. So if there's like any airflow in the room or something like that, it kind of messes up that consistency. Versus if I had a gas stove, which would be nice, but this part of our subdivision does not have gas. The first half does, but not the second half. Which I like cooking with a gas stove. It's more consistent, and if the power goes out, you can still cook. Like with my oven, it was out for a whole entire year, and we had to order a new panel for it. The panel came in, and my oven's got one of those fancy convection bake buttons on it. Well, the panel that was supposed to be the correct part didn't have that button on it. So, we had to send it back. And then, let's see, they didn't have the real part that we needed. Oh, it's got a big old bubble on it. So we had to wait a while. And then the top of the stove, the big, let's see, it's got 5 burners on the glass top. And on the big burner, the largest ring, no, the center ring of the big burner, that one took a dump, took shit, and so we were down to 4 small burners to cook for 6 people, which, whatever, made do. When I wanted to bake something, I just took out my dandy toaster oven and I baked in that. So I didn't care that I didn't have a full-size oven. And last year I even made my Christmas ham and my turkey on the barbecue grill because I didn't have an oven to bake it in, so I just baked it on the grill. And it came out perfect and delicious, and it was really good. I think the turkey was just a little bit dry, maybe. Maybe that was the ham, because you know when you buy ham it's already pre-cooked and you're just heating it up basically. I think it cooked for just a little bit too long. You just gotta watch it on the grill to keep the heat consistent. But it was good and it was delicious. It tastes even better that way. Eventually my goal is to build a cob oven out in the backyard. So that way we can do all of our baking outside. Especially during the summertime here, because it's so dang hot. I probably won't even need to put any wood in it. It'll just be hot all the time. So I want to build it so that it's dual fuel, which I'm going to have to figure out the schematics to doing that, so that I can run a propane line into it and also be able to use wood for kindling. So, but it's something that's off-grid and it's efficient. Because personally, I wouldn't mind if we were back in the dark ages, or I know this sounds crappy for most people, but they're like, so many people depend on, you know, life-saving devices and stuff, and that is very, very true. But as much as electricity has been helpful to us, the people, as far as technological advances, that's about all it's been good for. Because everything we've ever needed has always been here, and electricity wasn't one of them. There's wind power, there's hydropower, there's, you know, maybe there was a reason that there was no electricity. Yeah, it saves lives now, but back then we didn't live very long. We were lucky if we lived to be 36, 40 years old. You know, it's kind of like animals out in the wild. Once they become overpopulated, sometimes they eat their own, you know, and it's just a natural process of things. I mean, it's awesome to meet someone that's 110 years old. It still has their full mental capacity and is able to, you know, they're like an audiobook. They can tell you all these wonderful things about history, and they can tell you all the horrors about history, and better than reading any book, in my opinion. I don't like to read too much. It's not that I don't like to read, it's that when I do read, it makes me fall asleep. It makes me tired. And I don't like feeling tired or jet-lagged. So, not Jedi, I said jet-lagged. My daughter thought I said Jedi. I'm like, whoa! That's funny, out of the mouths of babes. My mama is a Jedi. Tortillas are so nummy. My great-grandmother, she was full-blooded Spaniard. Carrie was her name. That's also my name. I was named after my great-grandmother. But her given name was Carmelita. And when I was little, she used to babysit me when my mom would work sometimes, and I'd have, like, she didn't have, like, all of this awesome, cool stuff that kids would think were awesome and cool, but I loved going over to her house. Just being around her meant everything to me, because she lived in a small townhouse apartment with my great uncle, and it was her place, but my uncle, you know, he wasn't married or anything, and he had been married, but he was a mama's boy, I guess. He loved my grandmother just like the rest of us grandkids, but she always grew roses. Every place she lived, she grew roses. And the 2-story townhouse that she lived in, she had a little garden out on the back patio, and she didn't have a yard or anything. It was just a back patio. Of course, I just said that. But she grew tomatoes and all sorts of things, you know. She didn't grow them in the ground. She grew them in containers, and she was on a fixed income, and my uncle, you know, he helped support her, and she also had Social Security from when my great-grandfather passed away. And he died at a fairly young age. I think he was only about 10 years older than me, and I'm going to be 36 next week, so he died of a heart attack, and she had 3 kids, and she loved that man like no tomorrow. I have some pictures of them. They're really awesome pictures. But anyways, back to my point in my story. When I was little and I was out of her house, you know, she had her garden and everything, and I'd go play outside with the neighborhood kids, but when I was inside, she'd always watch Law and Order, and you know that, what is that, the freaking judge's hammer, whatever. You always hear that in the theme song, don't, like, and she'd watch, is it Hill Street Blues? Yeah. So her and my uncle, they'd watch that, and I had this Barbie car that had like a AM FM tune radio in the trunk of it, and I would listen to that, and I would tune it. The only station I could pick up was an AM radio station. It was opera, and if I turned it up too loud, like, I'd be lip singing the songs on there, and I'd turn, you know, and you're like, ah, and then there's my uncle's face, and he's looking at me like, and then I'm like, turn it back down, because it got too loud. But it's fun times like that. Like, my great-grandmother had this big, huge dining table, which I myself have a big dining table too now, which I got a screaming deal, and it's solid wood, and came with a nice hutch. I bought it from a friend of mine, and made payments on it, and I paid like $2,500 for it, and she paid like almost $6,000 for it. So, but we've gotten huge use out of it. On my grandmother's table, she used to give me some pledge and a dusting rag, and I was like 6, 7 years old, so I was short, small, and just climb under the table, and it had all these, you know, knobby table legs, and I would climb under there and take the rag and go back and forth like I was shining shoes. It was lots of fun. Nowadays, kids are like, oh, that's too much work. My son and daughter, Genevieve and Brennan, they like to dust. Sometimes they'll go grabbing all the rags out of the hutch, all the dishcloths and dust rags, and they're like, we're going to clean the house for you. And I'm like, okay. And they will, too. They'll run around, they'll start dusting everything. What else do you need us to clean, Mom? Do you need us to dust anything else? Oh, let's dust the bookshelf, Brennan. It's pretty cool. It's fun to watch them do that. And I'll ask them, I'm like, why are you doing this? Because we just want to help you, Mommy. Like, there's nothing better than that. But my great-grandmother, she would, I don't remember her making homemade tortillas, but I'm sure she did. But for my snacks at her house, I'd get a glass of powdered milk, because that's what she had. She had powdered milk in her house. And along with my powdered milk, I'd get a tortilla with honey and cheese on it. And when my great-grandmother passed away at her funeral, that week that she passed away before her funeral, I wrote her a letter. I was 14 at the time. And I wrote her a letter, and everybody got a chance to say something, and I read that letter out loud, and one of the last things I said in that letter was, I'm always going to miss your honey and cheese tortillas. And the funeral home, they allowed me to put that letter in her casket with her, and that letter was buried with her. She's buried next to my great uncle, my Uncle Skip, and next to my cousin, and also my other uncle, and my grandmother, my mom's mom. My great grandma is my mom's grandmother, and but she's with her grandchildren, her great-grandchildren, and her children, all in the Holy Sepulchre Cemetery in Anaheim, California. I miss my Grammy, my grandma. You know, when I gave birth to my first child, I felt the sense that my great-grandmother was there. And when I saw my daughter for the first time and I sat up to reach out to take her in my arms, I could see white lights all around me, and I felt this overwhelming sense of warmth. Not just from the euphoria of giving childbirth, but I knew my grandmother was there. It was pretty awesome, if I do say so myself. Okay, that one batch, these are like small tortillas. They're like 7 to 10 inch, varying sizes. Some for little hands, some for big hands. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13, and 14. 14 tortillas. And how much do you think it probably costs to make these tortillas? How much do you think it costs to make these tortillas at home, Beaver? How much? It costs this much at the store, but when you make stuff at home yourself, how much do you think it costs? 100 billion? No. It costs like $3 to $5 for a package of tortillas at the store. And I just made 14 tortillas with 3 cups of flour, so like 15 cents. So roughly a penny a piece, if that. So,
Mommy, can I play on Roblox games?
No, go play with your imagination. Go. Well, that's it. Now I gotta cook up some meat to make my tacos. Love you guys. Be safe, be well, and help your neighbors. Okay? Love you. Bye.